And we are live. What is up, everybody? This is Nick from P2W Fantasy here on Thursday, a week before the draft. And today I have two great guests on at the same time. Two guys I've been wanting to link up with. I might have done some articles and things like that in the past with these guys individually, but it's nice to be face-to-face and actually talking about some football in person. I'm sure you've never seen these guys together at the same time ever, but they did end up coming on the P2W podcast at the same time. So do appreciate that. I want to introduce each guy one by one here and let them talk about themselves before we talk about anything here on the podcast today. So first guy got with us is Scott. You can find Scott. Scott's got the nimblenumbers.com going on, co-founder of the Fantasy Millionaires, also writer for the Fantasy Six Pack, involved with WWSRN Radio. So Scott, thanks for joining the show, man. Can you tell us, of course, where to find you on social media? Because this will be out on iTunes, Spotify, all that good stuff. Where can we find you, and what do you got going on, man?
So my OnlyFans address is I'm kidding. I don't give that out. No, I'm Nimble W Numbers over on Twitter, and Bo has it. Bo knows. So it is true.
Bo knows.
Yeah, Bo knows. Yes, you can find me at nimblewnumbers.com. That's a site that I founded a couple years ago. It's a DFS forward site. If you want to know what it's about, it's primarily focused on DraftKings. We do a lot of good work over there. And my guy, the other guest on this show, Bo McBigtime over there, happens to be the star of my website over at Nimble W Numbers. He has his own section, Bo Knows. He writes every week and he crushes it over there. And then also have the FantasyMillionaires.com and the FF Millionaires on Twitter. And we do a show on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network every Monday night at 10 o'clock. And then on Friday night, Bo and I do a show at 11 o'clock with Jordan Vanek at Jordan Vanek 1 over on Twitter, and that is called Chalk Blocked, and that's primarily a football show. It's DFS in out of season now. We're just talking everything redraft, draft, all that kind of stuff. Then when we get into the season, it'll primarily focus on that DraftKings slate. Each week we'll break it down. So right now, Bo and I are just having fun, doing well, and I'm excited to be here. Nick, thank you for inviting me. You guys, since you guys started, and since we kind of started around similar times, we've just always been, liking each other's stuff on Twitter and appreciating each other. So thanks for having me on. I'm excited, and hopefully I don't embarrass Bo too much.
Hey, no guarantees there. And you did plug some of Bo's stuff already, but Bo, you have maybe the 101 of hot sauces maybe in the world that some people often claim, but Hotbox Batch talked about Chalk Blocked a little bit there. Mentioned WWSRN Radio as well. Bo and I are actually facing each other in a categories fantasy baseball league this week. So I actually hesitated on the invite because there was some tension going on, but I figured, hey, let's get both these guys on the show and let's talk about some football and DFS, things like that. So Bo, can you tell us again where we can find you, man? And what do you have going on?
Well, this is my handle right here on Twitter. Bo_Mick Big Time. I mostly just hang out. I lurk on Twitter, throwing gifts like a wild animal. And it's a lot of fun for me to write about fantasy football, to talk about fantasy football, to meet people who share the same interest. That's kind of Scott and I's bag. Is like we're both personable wackadoodles that just like to happen to be the same person 3,000 miles apart. And the hot sauce it was me just cooking stuff up on a whim last year. It was right before the whole lockdown situation, and I was just trying to recreate a taco sauce that was from this really well-known spot around my area, and I happened to just change up a few things, and it turned into more of a hot sauce than a taco sauce, which is more versatile. And I just gave away some mason jars full of it to my friends, and then they loved it. They asked me how much I wanted for it, and I told them I have no idea. I just made a sauce. What do you want from me? And then so they were sending me a Venmo for $20 for a jar of hot sauce, and I was like, okay, this is out of control. And so I started sending it to people all over Twitter because, that was my early ordering system, was Twitter DMs. And you can think about how complicated that could be when I start getting up to 20, 30, 40 bottles a month, trying to keep track of everybody's address and tracking information. it was impossible. So I created what was hotboxbatch.com, which I still own that domain, but bigtimeflavorcode.com is the domain that I recently purchased to more encapsulate Hotbox and the other products on the site for just like turning whatever you're cooking at home. I'm just trying to turn up the flavor big time.
Ooh.
That's really what my goal is to just help the home cook bring more flavor to their dinner table.
We got a quick question. Hotbox League 2.0 from D Brown, dropping that in there. Awesome stuff there from both of you guys. Obviously, Scott mentioned it. We've all interacted a lot. You guys are both super active in the community and known for what you guys do, whether it's DFS, whether it's Dynasty Talk, whether it's hot sauce, whatever the case is. You guys are definitely two awesome people in the community here. And we have great people in the chat I'd like to mention as well. D Brown, Jeremy Popes, Detroit Beastie popping in here. A lot of good guys. So I do want to say before we get into anything, this podcast is sponsored by the Fantasy Points Media Group, which is actually a branch of Fantasy Points. Scott dropping the Fantasy Points hat right here. Oh, repping the brand there. Fantasy Points in general, the website, one-stop shop. And I actually stand by that because all of my research now for articles, podcasts, tweet threads all come from fantasypoints.com. They have advanced metrics. They have articles, rankings, everything you're looking for in one place. And it's a great deal. I know some people hesitate with subscriptions, but I highly recommend it. And you can get a discount for signing up using my promo code 21WIN10. And Fantasy Points Media Group is sort of new. We're about a month in, and it features a couple different podcasts. So it's been awesome being part of that. And Scott, you said you had some things to say, some nice things about Fantasy Points.
Oh, yeah. I love the guys over there at Fantasy Points. They are some of the best analysts, if not the best analysts, particularly for DFS. I stand behind Scott Barrett, Graham Barfield, all those guys last year, Dr. John Proctor. I'm so glad that you guys have joined with them and that you guys have built this Fantasy Points Media Group. It's such a great idea, and I know you guys are going to crush it with them. You guys all have the same type of drive, energy, desire, and love of the game to push the content forward, to get fans involved, to get people subbed. And honestly, listen, I subbed immediately when they came out last year. The people behind this are some of the best in the business. The film breakdowns that they do, the talking that they do each week in their pods, you got to get it. I signed up again this year as well. And I'm going to sign up until I am dead every single year. Fantasy Points for life. And they got tight gear as well. And, I'm just going to say this hat, I think it's an original because I haven't seen anybody else with it. Not even Scott, not even, Dr. John, nobody else. So stick with Fantasy Points. You get awesome gear, honestly. It's tight.
Tight gear to go with your tight pants, Scott.
Hey, you wish you could fit in those pants, Bo. I got size 36 waist these days. Woo-hoo-hoo.
Yeah, I don't remember the last time I fit into a 36.
Plug in the waist size. I'll keep mine to myself here.
Well, okay, Mr. 29 over there.
I don't know about that. Maybe a little bit close, maybe close. But so what we got going on today, obviously, if I have both of these guys on, I have to talk about DFS. I don't think I've actually had a podcast where I had a focus on diving into DFS. I've had Chris Robin on a couple times, and he had some input, but that's one of the focuses of this podcast. Let's also talk about the draft that is a week from today and a few predictions moving forward for next year. So we'll get into that in a second here.
Play to win, no fear to give. I feel, but I can't forgive. I go all in this time, yeah, I won't regret. I'll pick the best on trip, they don't understand. I play to win, yeah, I play to win. I play to win, yeah, I play to win. I play to win, oh, play to win. I play to win, yeah, I play to win. I play to win.
All right, so before we get into anything with these topics that I have lined up for both of you guys, I do have to ask. So you guys did mention the collaboration you both have. How did you two run into each other and get connected? And either one of you guys can jump into that. I have to hear the story of the origins.
Yeah, so I could probably give you the Cliff's notes better because I'm more concise than Scott. Scott likes to ramble on.
He pointed. He's like, asking.
His version of the story is much more romantic than mine. So I'm going to give the cliff notes, and then he can wax poetic after that. So we met on Twitter shortly after we were both added to the Hotbox original league that was founded by Fantasy Stoner. And so there was an invite-only league. We had to do video submissions to get into it. And we both got into the league, and so we were in the sleeper chat, and then we started following each other on Twitter. And he got into a beef over something. I don't even remember, but I came to his defense as half-assed as I could, and basically told him to quit being a little whiny bitch, and he can get over it, and everybody else can get over it, and everybody's friends now. So it comes out the wash, and we ended up we were Twitter friends, and then he decided to put a job posting on Twitter last summer for a writer for DFS, and I was like, well, I play a lot of DFS. I know a lot about what doesn't work at DFS, and so I applied for the job, and he was so gracious to select me for the position, and the rest is history. I write for NimbleWnumbers.com, and we're kicking butt. We're making people money.
Hell yeah, we can cuss on this podcast. So hell yeah, Bo. I don't think I have
with the Z in there.
All right. It's right. Well, I like to say in my house, just because I don't like to cuss so much, I like to say shit taki mushrooms, and so
there you go.
It just
crying out loud.
Right, exactly. So I wouldn't say there's any upgrades to the story. I would just say that one thing he did leave out, but we kind of touched on it before, was he DM'd the sleeper group and was just like, hey, anybody interested in some hot sauce? I'm putting some together. And I was like, hell yeah, immediately. I want one of those. And then I could not stop getting enough of it. Like, I bought one, and then he's like, I'm just sending these out to the group. This is just for our Hotbox group. And I was like, I want another one. And then I was like, give me as many can fit in a box. And then he put like 20 in a box, and like me 3 or 4 broke because they were like so jammed in there in a box. I was like, I don't care. I was like, I got it. I got the stuff. I got the good stuff right now. And since then, I've been addicted. I'm addicted to Bo's hot sauce, is the truth. And I'm about to re-up. My last bottle is down. I got like 1 bottle left. So it is just the best stuff ever. And he did, woo me with his writing. Bo is an eloquent, loquacious, educated man of wit and wisdom. And so his writing, you got to have like, some cliff notes sometimes to get in there. And he helps me. He helps me break down and pick the right players. And so I love it. I'm so excited he's with me over at NimbleW Numbers. And we are making people money. Last year we did, and this year we're going to make people even more money. And Jordan's going to help me make some money against Bo this year, because Bo took all my money last year in head-to-heads. So,
oh yeah, and that's the part of the Hotbox story that almost nobody knows about, is that I had already called it Bravo Phoenix. I had one of my buddies, is an incredible artist, made me a logo he made it out of ballpoint pen. It's the most elaborate, beautiful Phoenix you've ever seen in your life. And then the Hotbox League was founded, and everybody in the league got a bottle that wanted one. And so after that, it was Scott's idea to say, hey, this is the Hotbox batch. It's a special batch, which it was true. I made a batch and sent out 12 bottles. And so that's where the Hotbox batch name came from, is because I sent 12 bottles of Bravo Phoenix out, and it just didn't roll off the tongue the same way, because the first people to get it outside of my community were in the Hotbox League on Sleeper.
Interesting. That all ties together right there. So Scott didn't try to run away and make a trademark out of that or anything then?
No, he's an employee at this point.
I'm in the Bo. This is the thing I was telling last night. I was on, the little pods last night, and I was sharing, I'm going to one day work for Bo. Like, I hired him first. I hope that he, appreciates my kindness to him, because eventually I'll work for him. And I want him to remember how kind I was to him, so that, he's kind to me. And so Bo's awesome. And if you have not had any of his Bo's Hotbox batch hot sauce, you need to go to bigflavorcode.com right now and order some. They've got amazing taco season. They've got a dry rub. I saw that Matt Harmon was getting down with that dry rub just yesterday, crushing it on his pork. So, I mean, seriously, one day, you could work for him too, Nick. We could all just work at the, Hotbox factory, and no complaints there.
These
So
are goals. These are
I
goals.
got a
That's-
job open right now because my 8-year-old daughter's terrible. She insists on putting the labels on, and they're always crooked or one like you'll have six bottles in a row, and the labels are all different levels. So I'm about to relieve her of her duties and hire a new label placer.
Label placer. Ironically, I'm a label creator for my job. I work for a school district, and they're doing this spit in a tube sort of thing. I'm a label creator, so I might be able to have that on the resume to potentially land at least an interview.
Oh yeah.
So maybe we can talk later about that.
Just don't put your
I'll
resume in white because it won't stand out.
Oh, I mean, I got the vibrant purple going on in the template here, created by Matty Big Chest over there. So thanks to him for that. I like the origin story about just kind of reaching out, having an opening sort of thing. It reminds me of Kevin at Du Bois _22, Kevin Coleman. Randomly, I'm like just over a year into podcasting and actually having this P2W brand. And at one point, I threw out like a Google form onto Twitter, and I was like, hey, fill this out if you want to be on the podcast. This is like way in the early days. And Kevin like filled it out. He's like, yeah, I'd love to come on. And we ended up podcasting together. And now we are very, very good friends. So obviously two different stories, but kind of relates a little bit about having an opening, shooting it out, and getting more connected.
He lives a couple hours from me, so we got.
Awesome.
Well, and I would say that one thing that is symmetrical in those stories is that you have people who love the same thing. And when you find out that someone else loves the same thing, there's just a bond, there's a connection. And then you really get into the weeds and the nerdiness of it and the numbers and like the players. And you're like, oh man, like this is my brother, And so that's how I feel about Bo. And really, a lot of the people that I've got to know on fantasy Twitter, not as much as Bo for sure. I mean, Bo's my best brother, but there's so many amazing people out there. And this has brought fantasy football has brought us all together to become friends. It's so cool. It's so cool. I love it. It's a great community to be in. And it's cool that we can all kind of share. Oh, my family's fighting upstairs. I don't know. Share it.
I completely agree. The thing that's crazy is that you make good friendships through the space, because I've literally had like a rough week, and might have hinted at something, or I've had a great week and posted a picture. And I feel like I have a lot of friends back home, but there's so many people that reach out to me via fantasy Twitter, fantasy community, via text, whatever the case is, that I met in the space, sometimes more than my friends from back home, which is insane, but it's awesome the kind of people you meet and run into in the space here. So DFS, let's jump into DFS. I do want to shout out DFS Docket in the chat, had Troy King in the chat, my guy Manny Chikuba in the chat, tons of great people in the chat here. Good point. Love the fantasy community. Absolutely. So for those listening, and we can't assume everybody knows all the acronyms all the time. At one point, SF was always San Francisco, and then later down the road it was Superflex. We learn different acronyms all the time. So daily fantasy sports is what we're talking about, DFS, to begin with here. So with DFS, you guys both do a ton. I love the videos back and forth when you guys were talking about beating each other in different competitions and things like that, stealing money. I'm just having flashbacks to some of those videos, and it's awesome to compete. I probably was in like a competition on a random Sunday with the both of you guys. But when it comes to DFS, I have two questions, and we'll go Bo and then Scott with this question. You can just talk about more of what you want with this. One, how'd you get into the whole DFS is maybe a focus of some of your content and your talk, and you dove more into it, maybe where you got started or when you figured out, hey, I'm pretty good at this. Like, this is something I want to talk about more often. And my side question is, and I'll get into why I'm asking this, do you think it's important to be an active DFS player if you produce the content? So I got an A and a B. How'd you get into it and make it serious? And B, do you think it's important to actually be active doing it if you speak on it? And we'll go to Bo first.
So, I got in when DraftKings was created, like daily fantasy sports. As soon as it was created, I was intrigued. I saw the commercials. DraftKings put out millions and millions of dollars worth of commercials their first year. They ended up losing money in the deal because they didn't have enough signups to cover their marketing bill that first year. But I was the kind of person, I'm a true degenerate. I love sports wagering. I love fantasy football, and that kind of dichotomy there between the two was intriguing to me. So I deposited money on DraftKings, like probably the first NFL week they even had it. And I think I won a few, like I doubled up or something. It was like I put 10 or $20 in, doubled my money, played it again next week, doubled my money, and then the next week I lost all of it. So it was all the, you run up all the emotions, and
Always.
pretty much just hooked by the game itself, the strategy involved, the gambling side of it, where you're trying to manage your bankroll, and then you're trying to select the right bets to place, and that's kind of what leads me into the B answer. Is I think at the beginning, if you think you're good enough to speak on the topic, you should build your reputation through actively playing it, because there's a lot of learning that goes into DFS from your successes and your failures. Like, anybody can learn from your mistakes, but you should learn from your successes too. Like, hey, what worked and why did it work? And so a really experienced DFS player, they got all their algorithms figured out. They got their value plays, and they're still going to play. If they're a DFS player, they're not going to not be active. They're going to be like me and Scott, where they're just itching to go every Sunday. Like, come on, man, just need more of that action. Oh, we got a Monday, Thursday slate. We got to hit it. Oh my God. Like, if I take a day off of DFS, I feel weird. Like, it feels weird right now not having NFL DFS, but I've gotten into PGA and MLB, and I even played a couple NBA contests terribly and lost some bankroll there. But yeah, baseball and golf keep me going. MMA, I mean, doing the UFC slate is fun, but it's still it pales in comparison to how much attention goes to the NFL slate and how much work we put into it to win our own money. But also, now that we're content creators on the subject, we almost like to see what happened last year, where we make good money, but our followers make even more. Like, they're sending us DMs going, holy crap, I can't believe you called that. We're super happy. We're going to keep reading. We're going to keep tuning in.
I like a lot of those points there too, especially with, hey, I realize I'm pretty good at it. I'm putting in the reps with it. I'm learning from what I'm doing. It relates directly to just fantasy football content, because we all were at that point where, like, man, I love playing fantasy football. I'm getting pretty good at it. I'm learning from it, and now I can express what I've learned and things like that. That's why I ask a lot of the times too, because you don't have to – I don't think you have to be a guy that, every week you say, hey, here's my receipt. I won $500. I won $200. But I think actively playing, the same with fantasy football. I mean, if you're talking about the content and you're not playing fantasy, it wouldn't add up, because you're not learning from actually playing. But yeah, very good points there. Scott, curious to hear maybe your backstory, how you got into DFS and realized, hey, I want to dive deeper into this and share content, and maybe the importance of actually doing the reps, kind of like Bo said.
Yeah, so for me, I played redraft since like 2004, maybe is when I first started. 2003, sometime in there, and it was something that I loved and I became obsessed with, to the point where Maryland, everything wasn't legal at the same time, I think, as California and stuff. But in 2018, I started doing FanDuel. That's where I kind of jumped in. I started doing FanDuel every week. I just play a little bit here and there, and I loved it when I won, and it was intriguing. It was creative. It got me kind of thinking differently about each week, and my perspective was starting to change. I played a little bit 2018, and then 2019, I was working as I'm an educator, so I'm a teacher right now, and I was hired as a consulting teacher. And what I did was I drove around my county. I went to about 15 different schools, and I mentored, supported, coached, and evaluated new teachers and then underperforming teachers. So I would sit in their classroom, take copious amounts of notes, every single word anybody said in the room, come home, decipher it, analyze it, and then I would create a report, write a report, 6-7 page report about their competency. And man, I was doing this 80 hours a week, and it was crushing my soul, just killing me in 2019. And one night on a Friday night, after I had worked, a 20-hour day, whatever it was, I worked all day, wrote all day. I came home and I said, I am going to start doing what I love now. I hate this writing for school. I'm going to write for DFS. And I bought a website and I just started writing. It was weird. My wife's like, what the heck are you doing? And I didn't know what I was doing. It was almost like a reaction. Like I had to go through this trauma of being, overworked and being used by my employer for 80 hours plus for months. And then it broke me. Like it did. It crushed my soul. And what came out was fantasy football. Like what was most important to me, what I love the most, fantasy. What I really love the most is daily fantasy. I mean, honestly, playing every single day, getting in there, and it became my passion. And I wrote about it, and I wrote a big, long, little, like Bo says, soliloquy. And in the beginning, it just said, this is my shot in the dark. Because I was, unhappy and not very successful, even though I was doing a great job as a CT, not successful for me because I didn't have any time for myself to do what I wanted. And I changed that. And I turned it around, and I started going after DFS. I started analyzing what I was doing every week. That's what my process was, is writing was helping me analyze. And I did that. And I won a couple $100 in 2019. I said, we can do this, or I can do this better in 2020, but I need some help. I need someone to jump in there and write with me and help build what I want to kind of get out of this long term. And Bo, he was the real deal. I think what you talked about in that question, do you have to actively participate and kind of be involved in playing DFS? Yes. You need to understand every single type of tournament. You need to understand, at least if you're going to talk about it and be an expert and be somebody who people can trust, you need to understand the leverages you have in those tournaments and how you will play them, why you will play them, when you will play them, when you will not play them, and how, when you get into these different contexts, you're going to build your lineups. And so I'm still learning. This is only my 4th year of kind of full-time DFS work right now. And I've only won, $5K. So it's not like I've won millions of dollars. But I've learned a lot from Bo, and I've learned a lot about the authenticity it takes to be successful. And if you're not a super wizard with algorithms, which I'm not, then you need to be living, eating, sleeping, breathing. That's why I love fantasy points. Honestly, plug for fantasy points. That's why I love, P2W. That's why I love all of these different groups, that what they're dedicated to is every single day living the fantasy life, as Matthew Berry would say. And that's what we do. That's what you do. It's what we all do. So yeah, you can get in, you can fake DFS, you can pretend that you're good, but if you don't play, you're not going to know what you're talking about, honestly. So
yeah, that's again directly the same for fantasy football. I mean, putting in the reps and learning from experience before you talk about it, especially with DFS though, because with fantasy, some people play for fun, some people play for charity, some people play in a low money work league. But DFS, the whole thing is literally revolved around putting in money down on lineups and things like that. So I mean, to kind of half-ass some of it doesn't make a ton of sense. So I do respect guys like yourselves who put in the reps. I mean, I see the videos back and forth. I see, the winning lineups sometimes, things like that. But I know you guys are super active with it and really get after, hey, this works, this hasn't worked, this is what I've learned. I like that a lot. I can relate to the wife comments, seeing you writing and saying, hey, what's going on? Because literally during COVID, mine like came from Walmart or something like that. And I told her, I'm like, hey, I just started a fantasy brand and I made my first article. And she just looked at me and she's like, oh, and then she just kept like walking like, oh, okay. Like something else.
Sounds familiar. Sounds really familiar.
Well, mine does this now. When is, and she said it then. So it cost $100 to buy a website. When's that money coming back? When you getting that money back? And now I tell her, well, we're signing with different people. We're actually making money. I think she'd be happy. She's like, okay. So,
I think, yeah, the buy-in's different though. When like you go from, hey, I just started this thing and now I'm writing a couple articles to, hey, I just went live with some big guys for like tonight, big DFS guys. We had a bunch of viewers and comments, and it's crazy how something can grow for anybody with that. DFS. Yeah. So let's dive into the NFL season. So we'll go back to Bo and then back to Scott here. Oh, we got even more people in the chat. We did have D Mendy popping in there.
Hey.
I got Ryan Bootleg Fantasy. He was an awesome guest on the show as well. So DFS, there's got to be strategy. I mean, we all like. I remember being in college, and at the end of college, and throwing in a random football lineup or a basketball lineup and saying, "Hey, these guys are good. It should work." And then a lot of times it didn't. So personally, what's some factors that come into play during the season that are important to you? I mean, what's important to Bo? Maybe not align with exactly what Scott looks for. Is it matchups? Is it other defenses? Is it injuries that make guys more valuable at a low price? Like, what do you look for during the NFL season for your personal lineups? And we'll start with Bo.
So for me, it's the strategy is more football related. Like I'm more of a film watching kind of dynasty player, and I'm more of a film watching X's and O's kind of fantasy player in general. So where I do have a background in mathematics, like my job involves mathematics on a daily basis. I did take advanced calculus. Do I remember much of it from getting a barely passing grade? Hell no. I don't really have a knack for math, even if I understand some of the concepts. So for me, it comes down to treating it like you're investing. You're investing in a product. You're saying, okay, the product that I'm putting out this week is a lineup or a group of lineups to enter in certain contests, and that's my first strategy. Is okay, how much money am I putting in, and which contests am I putting that money into? If you don't manage your bankroll and select the right contests, it really doesn't matter how good your lineups are, because if you pick a contest with a high pay line where you're playing with a bunch of sharks and the pay line's gonna be super high, and you're throwing your money away. So I focus more on which contests I'm going to enter based on the structure of it, the payout structure, the how much rake the company like DraftKings is taking in that contest. It varies wildly. And so I'll spend my first 3 days of the week just figuring out which ones I'm going to enter. And then I start building lineups to maximize my profit in those contests. And that's really what I try to do, is at least double my money every week. And that's kind of what I'm known for, is cash games, being able to pick volume plays that take people and give them a very, very high likelihood of doubling up.
I like the point that you brought up about early in the week starting to look at things and building from there, because I think the misconception is, come Sunday, you wake up, for guys that take it super serious, you wake up, you might see a contest from your buddy, or you just see the most common contest that is out there, and you just go from there and just start clicking away. But a guy like Bo is saying early in the week he's already looking at things for that NFL Sunday and preparing for it, and that's how serious he takes it. Off topic here, Nick, you need to step up your beard game here. I agree. I'm very Italian with like my features, so I get this like stash, like I'm trying to save Princess Peach from Bowser going on all the time, but I'm trying.
Listen, you look good doing you, Nick. I just gotta be honest. Like, everybody can't do the same beard, and so your chin strap thing, you look like I could dunk on you, or I could hit a 3 in your face. Either one of those things I could do. Whereas I look like I could like eat a chicken wing faster than anybody else. Like, that's, so you're good, man. You look great.
It's interesting what the facial hair can give off, because I wouldn't have said that about the chicken wing thing, but maybe it comes off that way for some other people. I don't know.
It's accurate.
It's accurate.
Bo confirms.
It
Scott, DFS. So with lineups for Sunday, what's the process? Yeah. What are you looking at? Like, what's your strategy here?
So I like Bo. I have consistent contests that I like to play each week, and I have the same ones that I go to every single week that I've kind of laid out. I know the strategy. Last year, I incorporated a new contest. It's the $100 double up in DraftKings. It's about 1,400 people, 1,000 people. It changes from week to week. They give it different, they wait at different times and they change it. I don't know what they do. But with Bo's help last year, out of about 12 contests, I think I won 7. No, I won 8 and lost 4. So I'm netting $400 right there. And so simply, if you use some of the strategies that Bo was sharing on my website and you bankrolled yourself, you won more than you didn't when you went to head-to-head. So I learned about head-to-heads last year with Bo. That wasn't really my forte. I'd never played them, never played double ups, never done those things. So I'd lose $50 to Bo every week in my head-to-head, where I'd score like 170 or 180, and he'd get like 190. And then I would win that with that same lineup or a lineup similar in my head-to-head contest for $100. So it was nice to learn that. What I love to do, though, and what is my kind of bread and butter, is the 50-cent, 25-cent tournaments where you can create 150 lineups that are unique. And so I don't like to use optimizers. I like to create with my hands, but I'd like to understand what the percentage of the chalk is. I mean, and so for me, I'm always hunting for value. My perspective is who is going to be a value, who's not going to be either owned a lot, or who's going to have a massive upside with a low price that I can plug in and get the most out of it. And so last year, I think when I won my 5K, I scored 251 points. It would have been good enough for winning the Million Maker by like 5 or 6 points, like easy, would have won it. And so that lineup, I went down, I listened to other people as well. And so for me, I'm a junkie. Like, I'm a DFS junkie. I will listen to the Fantasy Points podcast. I probably picked up a player from them in that, and you pick up 1 or 2 players here and there. So all week, I'm just listening to podcasts. I'm looking at my data. Nimble W Numbers is about data. I built my DraftKings tool that I put on there last year. My DraftKings tool had every single point that was scored by any position player in DraftKings each week, and it was charted and it was sortable. And so you could go in and look at what the trends were for teams. You could look at the trends for players overall, where people were ranking each week. And so I just building it myself, just my own process of having to know those numbers and input them and build it, helped me when I go to podcasts or I go to anything else. I just knew my data. I just knew, okay, so he's getting, 17 average of 17 targets per game. We're talking about Austin Eckler in a little tiny games, span last year, things like that just you're not going to always know unless you're doing the work behind the scenes. And so I'm sure my process will be different this year, because I'm going to try to hire somebody to build that for me, because it's just, my wife is tired of me working 7 hours a week building that tool for nothing. But it really helped my process to understand and to own my data, and to make it so that when I went in to build my lineup, I knew what I was working with. I knew the past statistics that led, let's say Denzel Mims to this price point, and I knew what this price point could mean if he went off. And so I think for me, it's about prices, values, and then what other people are doing, plus the contest, like that Bo said, that you're always going to go to, that you have a value or an edge in against the competition.
Awesome. And I like the very specifics of it, because I think, again, I could talk about a misconception just from viewing things on Twitter or on, I don't know, just random articles from the web on DFS for the week and stuff. I feel like it is a very specific process. There's a lot of research involved from the right people. First, you see sometimes, hey, consider, one of these 20 running backs when there's 32 teams to consider. I mean, there's things like that. Like, we have to really be specific with people we consume this sort of content from, I think, personally, because, again, money's involved, and it is a very specific and research process versus, hey, this guy looks pretty good this week, and so do these other 32, 35 guys, which is anybody can do something like that. Awesome. So, again, haven't talked a lot of DFS of strategy, things like that, so I think that was awesome. I do want to get into the draft now, since it's a week from today. We're super excited. The Twitter world is going to change come draft time, because we don't have to worry about all these mocks and speculations. Now it's going to be the landing spot versus talent debates. That's going to be the next wave of things on Twitter here. But to start off, so we'll go a little bit away here from DFS. We talk about the guys like, Najee Harris, Kyle Pitts, Trevor Lawrence, the big names. For you guys, though, give me one guy in this draft that you'd consider like my guy. Like, hey, he's not one of the top 2-3 guys in the position, but I actually really like this guy. I'll throw one out there. Obviously, a lot of people talk about him enough, but I really like Elijah Moore. I love the route running, the separation and quickness. He's played primarily in the slot. Good hands, but he can line up everywhere. Yeah. So if that was your guy, definitely go into that. But he's a playmaker, and I'm excited because there's a lot of teams that need a wide receiver bad. And if he lands on one of those teams, I think he's going to have massive value. So, Bo, if I stole yours, you can continue on with him, or you can go into a different guy. Up to you. But that's my guy right now.
No, I mean, you just sniped me on one of my guys. I wrote down one for each position.
Okay. All right.
I'm gonna have to really beat you in that baseball league this week now.
It's tight. I don't even want to look at it right now.
Yeah, so I mean, the obvious Trevor Lawrence comparison. Everybody on Twitter who follows me knows how high I am on Trevor Lawrence, of course, but not too far behind him is Justin Fields. Justin Fields he's the real deal. He's everything you want in a quarterback in the 21st century. He just checks every single box. There is no box that Justin Fields doesn't not just check but fill in. He's a real deal quarterback, and I think based on landing spot, it's gonna determine what his ceiling is. I think his floor is probably the highest in this grouping of picks, but his ceiling could either be the highest or second highest compared to Trevor Lawrence out of the whole group. And I always draft for ceiling. I'm not gonna just try to do second, third, fourth place. I'm saying, okay, if I'm gonna win, it's because I hit my ceiling.
You play to win.
Play to win the game.
I wish I had some cool noise or something.
Yeah.
To play with that.
Like, bow, 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 bow.
JJ Reason. Bow, 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 bow.
Can you throw in Herm Edwards? You play to win the game.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. Throw in a Herm Edwards sounder.
I need that. Yeah, that's actually awesome. Yeah, I don't know why I haven't thought of something like that.
Come on, man.
Man, Bo's got great ideas across the board, by the way. Just so you know, he's an idea guy.
Out of me. But yeah, I mean, Justin Fields at quarterback is a no-brainer for me. He's falling in some people's mock drafts, which I don't understand.
Charlie Casserly thinks he's going to be 24th to the Steelers, which is just like a mind F by Charlie. I mean, goodness gracious, 24th to the Steelers in a mock?
Sounds like clickbait to me. So
yeah.
anything where any of these 5 quarterbacks leave the top 15 is essentially clickbait.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen. As much as I think I can mock Mac Jones to 32 at Kansas City, it's super unlikely.
Scott, do you have a my guy that's not, the Kyle Pitts, the Trevor Lawrence, the Najee Harris?
I have a guy, and I'm gonna tell you who I think he comps to before I tell you who he is. And so he's not gonna be the next, but I think he comps out similar to him in that he can. He's got strong hands. He's got leaping ability. He can separate. He is a great route runner. He's got strong upper body. Bo, do you think you know who I'm talking about already? You see, you nodding your head over there. It's Rashad Bateman. I think that he is undervalued, and I think that Minnesota's not a big school. I know it is in the upper part of our country, right? The coldest part of our country. We're kind of, nobody really thinks that much about, but Minnesota has brought some amazing football players out of there. And oh no, just me and Bo now. Okay, this is great. I'm gonna lean up here.
Takeover.
The takeover is here. So I do think Rashad Bateman is somebody who really does have a great potential, especially if he lands with a team. I mean, if he could go to Green Bay, holy smoke! Imagine, or Elijah Moore, either one of them with my guy Aaron Rodgers. Oh my Lord!
Elijah Moore would be a better Randall Cobb.
He would be a faster, quicker version. But I don't know. That's somebody who I want to see where he goes, and because he's not, the Jalen Waddle and the Devonta Smith and the big name. He might be picked up by a team that is successful already. So somebody who doesn't have to, reach for a wide receiver because they suck and they need to grab somebody, but who can actually put them in a spot to be successful. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm hopeful.
Yep.
So we just talked about wide receiver right there, and we had you guys co-host there for a second as I lost my audio. So appreciate that. Speaking of wide receivers, all right. So Henry Ruggs last year was surprisingly the first wide receiver off the board. 12th overall pick. A lot of people kept debating between Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb who it's going to be, and the Raiders said, no, it's Henry Ruggs.
Thanks for CeeDee. Thanks for CeeDee.
Yeah, exactly. That's what everybody was saying for some of these picks. Another surprise, Rieger went before Justin Jefferson in the draft. Some people liked it. I put out like a tweet. I have the receipts. I'm like, I cannot believe they passed on Jefferson for Rieger, and a lot of people were like trying to come at me in the comments saying, no, watch the film, watch the tape, like this and that. I'm like, oh, all right, sounds good. So for this season, I think Chase, I mean, we could be surprised. I think Chase should be the wide receiver 1 off the board. So maybe not who's going to be the wide receiver 1, but do you see a wide receiver in this class surprising us to jumping up the draft board? Maybe not as the first or second guy, but above some others that he's not expected to be drafted above. Scott, we can start with you on this one. Does somebody stand out to, hey, this guy might surprise us and get drafted higher than we think?
Well, I mean, it might not be the first round, but I think Terrace Marshall is somebody who is definitely going to be a better – I mean, he was a great player at LSU. I don't want to diminish him at all. I think just he's overshadowed by, Jamar Chase, and he He did play last year. So there is there's just a little bit of, or he did not play. Did he play last year, or did he not play last year? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think he's somebody who is definitely there's whispers about him. He's not the number one over there in LSU, but I think he's going to have a bigger impact than people think when he gets on the NFL field. Just his body size, just the ability for him to get. This is the thing. We watch these guys in college, and for me, what stands out is if you're able to not just get separation, but when you catch the ball, are you going down with your first hit? How do you respond when you actually get hit? Because the NFL, there's a lot of one and done. If you can break a tackle in the secondary and you can go, then you're going to be successful. So I think he has that next gear ability to take a hit from a corner, to keep going, to man up, to push that corner down, and to go for a touchdown or until the safety gets him. So I think Marshall has an opportunity to be drafted, maybe in the end of the first round, probably not, but he'll be a great, second round wide receiver for anybody who grabs him.
I like that. And he's for some people is actually very high on the board. Other people, they're pushing him down. So I can see the reasons to why Marshall would be a guy very appealing to some teams that are wide receiver needy. I threw in, before we go to Bo, I threw in Kadarius Toney, and I'm not going to say that I'm super high on him, but I can understand why some people might, because I think the league likes these gadget guys a lot. And I'm with you, Bo. I don't have him super high on my list. I really don't. But I can understand to where he might go higher than we expect him to go, because some people want him to be like a Deebo Samuel type of player, where he's like a gadget guy who's breaking some tackles and he's used in a variety of ways. And I think there's a few guys in this class like that, but I feel like because of that want for that different sort of wide receiver, he might go higher than you might say, Bo, or I might say. So again, that's the guy that comes to mind is, hey, man, I thought he was going to go later, but he went higher just because of that. He might be a Deebo Samuel type of player. Bo, who's the guy that comes to mind for you as wide receiver? Hey, we don't see him going this high in the draft, but he might.
So having my finger on the pulse of the NFL football type people and then the fantasy analyst type people is there's a huge canyon of opinion between the two sides. And that's the way it is with Kadarius Toney. Is a fantasy player watches him be probably barely in the top 10 of SEC receivers last year. He's probably the third best wide receiver on his own team last year, behind Pitts and the other guy on the other side. But because he's flashy, because he makes great moves and he makes big plays, he's seen a huge rise, and the NFL guys like him because he is that gadget player. Mm-hmm. I think there's about 11 wide receivers in this class that are better at being that gadget than Kadarius Toney is. And you could say any of the top 10 wide receivers could play that slot or that gadget player on top of X and Y. You don't have a lack of talent in this class. I'm going to go and say that somebody who's kind of trickled down the boards on the fantasy side, but I think he's holding strong on the NFL side, is Tylan Wallace out of Oklahoma State. That guy stands out on tape like no other. He's an absolute playmaker. He didn't measure well. He measured shorter and lighter, kind of like Bateman did. He didn't show as much athleticism on the piece of paper as he did on film, but the guy plays big. He has got great hands. He runs great routes, and he's a rack monster. So I think NFL teams are going to value that higher than a fantasy analyst will. So I think Tylan Wallace might sneak into that second round ahead of a few other big names that we're expecting to go in pretty high.
I like that separation between the fantasy and maybe an NFL executive mindset. And that was kind of my approach for Toney as well, because like I said, I'm not super high in him, but I can understand where an NFL executive might be that high. Same with Tylan Wallace, who a lot of people like, but again, when you're looking at the mentalities, what's the need? What could be the mindset of, again, how we see a fantasy ceiling versus an actual fit for an NFL team could be two different things there. I want to shift right away into the running backs as we're getting close to the 50-minute mark here. CEH surprised us last year. Again, when something like we talk about all the mocks and things like that for fantasy Twitter right now, it's going to shift to landing spot. CEH rose up the board for fantasy. Checking the club top shot there. Hey, there you go. There you go.
I'm still at 30. It's so annoying. Like I'm 30,000. Like, come on. I've been there for forever. Sorry.
Unbelievable. To CEH though, so a lot of us thought it was going to be either Jonathan Taylor or DeAndre Swift. I was playing, these Taylor Swift narratives, things like that for articles, trying to be funny, trying to be original. Probably wasn't at all. It ended up being CEH. So a lot of us see Najee Harris as the best running back in the class. Some people don't, though. Some people don't. Do you have a guy, again, for the same sort of topic? The draft's a week from today. You're going to be surprised, just like last year. Man, CEH went 1. So if it's not 1, maybe it's just this guy just went high out of nowhere. Bo, we can start with you. Do you think there's going to be a surprise in this draft for the running back position?
I think the surprise won't be who goes up above somebody else. But last year, we had more running back talent by far than this year. And we had fewer running back starving teams than this year. So last year we had more good running backs than we had teams that needed them. That's why JT went to Indy. That's why CEH went before all the other guys, because Kansas City saw a better fit there. They saw a very agile back that could catch passes pretty naturally, and they didn't really need a guy who could pass protect. And so that really, I think it's going to happen the opposite this time. I think you're going to see up to 3 first-round running backs this year, because there's scarcity this year, where after the first 3 or 4 running backs, it falls off a cliff quality-wise, and you might see those really running back starving teams like Miami, Jacksonville, and Pittsburgh to jump up, Arizona even, to jump up and jockey to get one of those guys. So I think that running backs might go earlier this year as a whole, and then we'll wait 2 or 3 extra rounds to get to the next tier. So Javonte to Pittsburgh at 24 might surprise people.
I think that might be the juiciest landing spot. I mean, I don't know if you guys. It should be, because
they need a new identity in Pittsburgh. Running the ball last year wasn't just Connor missing time and then missing not breaking tackles. It had nothing to do with the running back position. Their line was terrible. Their scheme was terrible. They played soft. They did deke and dunk because they couldn't run the ball physically. They need a presence in the backfield. They need a thumper, and Javonte or Najee would work, but I think Najee's going to go in the middle of the first round.
Plus, with the Steelers, before we get to Scott, they were a good offense last year, and they are in good field positions. Whereas you look like a team like Jacksonville, James Robinson, people would often ask, hey, he's having a good season. Why is he not in the red zone enough getting touches? But the state of the offense is very different because of that. So that's another reason why I think the Steelers landing spot will be great, because I think the offense through the air is going to put them in good positions to score for fantasy the most points, which is touchdowns. So Scott, same topic, man. Do you see what's your thoughts on the running back class, either for surprises or a player that you think might surprise us? I think Bo might have sniped you on this one. I'm not sure. You tell me.
He did snipe me a tidbit. And, yesterday I was in a best ball draft over at Underdog, and I was with Bo. And I got Javonte Williams, and then I think Bo's a little jealous. He saw me get him, and he was like, "I want to have him too. I wish I could." And I mean, honestly, I kid, but I think that Bo is spot on. If he could go to Pittsburgh at 24, that would be an ideal landing spot for him. I mean, he brings physicality. I'm sure he's 220-ish. I'm sure that they would put maybe 5 more pounds of muscle on him by the time the season started, and then they could bang. And I know that they're going to have to revamp that line, like Bo said, and change the identity of the team. I almost think because Big Ben is a statue back there, that their thought was like, okay, let's just do 1,000 plays real quick, and then we'll hut hike, stand up, push, and then we're done. And I've played football. I actually got in the trenches before. And what happens when you have that mindset is that people can beat you. they can beat you on the offensive or on the when you're pass rushing or when you're run blocking. Either way, like they can come at you if you're not being aggressive. Football is an aggressive game where you're dealing with men who are very physical, and every single time you get in there, you need to smack someone in the mouth. That's what I've learned playing football. And if you're not a spur under someone's side as an offensive lineman, that's what I did, then they're going to abuse you. And so I think that last year Pittsburgh got abused. I mean, for a 13-0 team who started like wildfire, their inability to run the football was it portended incredibly to their downfall, because in the playoffs, you do have to score the football, but you have to maintain possession of the football. You can't give the Cleveland Browns 27 possessions and 60 points. It doesn't work. And so not that you have to establish the run. I'm not one of those old heads. Shout out Evan Silva. Love you guys. But you do need to be able to run the football when it calls for running the football. And Pittsburgh couldn't do that last year. So they kind of subjugated themselves to shootouts. So if they could get a banger like Williams, I would love that. That would be great. And Bo, I'm a little jealous that you stole that from me. And I'm going to dock you 50 cents on your next article. So.
Are you surprised?
No. So what is it? I was going to ask, like, what does that leave you at then, Bo? That's specific. So we'll go past
if
that.
If I add in my $50 every week from head to head, it's not much of a difference.
It's
$84.50. Push and pull.
I'll say this: when I started in the industry, I still am in the industry. Starting, I was getting paid like $10 an article, and that's disrespectful. Let me just tell you that's disrespectful from anybody. So Bo gets above that for sure. He gets like $11 an article. So
excellent. He said he's above average.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the points, Scott. Last year, with some of the landing spots, we didn't expect it to be like clear as day. We didn't expect like DeAndre Swift to be a Detroit Lion. Maybe some people might have mocked it, but it wasn't an expectation. With a team like the Steelers, it's an expectation they're going to address the position because it's a must. My last question is, we're getting close to the hour mark, and then we'll wrap it up around that. My last question is Jets then 49ers in this draft here. Some people think it's clear as day what's going to happen, that it's solidified. I mean, I went to DraftKings Sportsbook. We talked about some betting earlier, different sort of betting here. Wilson minus 5,000 is a second pick. Zach Wilson. Justin Fields is a second pick, plus 1,600. I mean, the odds like are really swayed one way. You can put $5 on Justin Fields going to the Jets and have a great payout just for $5. When it comes to the Jets and the 49ers, what are we projecting here in all honesty? And if that's how it's going to go, then that's how it's going to go. But what are you projecting? We'll go again to Bo and then Scott. What are these two teams going to do?
Since it's way more up in the air than people are giving it credit. I don't believe
I agree.
Anything that's being said right now is more likely to be a lie than anything, or a smokescreen than the outright truth. Gone are the days where the Browns in 2 months before the draft announced that they're picking Joe Thomas. Those days are long gone. Now it's all smoke screens and trying to maneuver yourself. The 49ers are hoping that one of their guys, their top guy of the three guys that they narrowed it down to by trading up, are still there. We all know who the three are. And all of a sudden, we're hearing that it's a lock that Mac Jones is going at 3. Well, no, I don't think that that's even close to possible. You don't spend 3 first-round picks on a guy named McCorkle. That's just not what people do. That's not what smart GMs do. But I think that there's less than 100% chance that Lawrence goes number 1. I think it's 95% he goes at 1, with a 5% chance going to Fields for that Ohio State connection with Urban Meyer. And then I see about 50-50 chance that the Jets take Fields at 2, which makes that bet at plus 1,600 a really good one.
Steal.
I've been hedging bets based on the odds. I put $5 on Fields at 1. I put $10 on Fields at 2, and then I put about 50 on Fields at 3, because I don't think there's any possible way that the second best quarterback in this class is leaving that top 3.
I like that. And it's interesting, the increments you went there. I put some money too on, not a lot, but I put some money on Fields going 2 and Zach Wilson going 3, and the payout, if that happens, is like ridiculous for it being really up in the air, like you said, Bo. I don't think anything's solidified at this time. Scott, your thoughts? Jets, 49ers, they're both on the clock. Is it as clear as people are trying to say it is, or what are your thoughts?
I don't think it is clear as people say it is. I'm not sure what the Jets are going to do, but nobody can tell you what the 49ers are going to do. Nobody. Because I saw a back-to-back tweet, these links where they kind of share. Someone's predicting that Mac Jones is going to be this with a certainty. Mac Jones is going to be. Then Trey Lance's parents were visited in Fargo. Certainty. It's going to be so. Yeah, so I just think that there is, like Bo said, there's a great chance of uncertainty past that first pick. And I do think that Justin Fields has a good chance of being drafted by the Jets. I do think he has a good chance just on talent alone. I'm not sure if Woody Johnson, though, is going to do that. No offense to Johnson and Johnson, their vaccine. So I know they'll mess it up. Yeah. Oh, man. Hey, Bo, don't die today. So, but with that being said, I honestly think that the Jets will mess it up and they'll draft Zach Wilson, and then Fields will fall to the 49ers. And I think that's who they wanted all along. And I think that Mac Jones was subterfuge. And I think that this Trey Lance kind of story, you got to do your due diligence. I think you have to do. But if you can get somebody who can run a 4-4 and they can throw the ball like Russell Wilson, and they've got, listen, I know that people said that he only went, Fields only went on his first read 70% of the time, whatever. He didn't need to. He can scan the field when he needs to. If your first read's open 80% of the time, whatever it is, then you throw the ball to that person. That's what they teach you. So just because he didn't do it doesn't mean he can't do it. And I'm with Bo. I think Justin Fields is somebody who has the potential to be the best Trevor Lawrence is going to be huge, but if he goes to the right team, Fields could end the season as the QB1 in the rookie department. That's my thought. So.
Yep. It's interesting, like what you brought up about the knocks on Fields, and obviously I'm not going to knock Trevor Lawrence because he's very good, but the Clemson offense was extremely schemed and scripted, and that's not talked about enough. But when it comes to Justin Fields, everything's knocked on. Everything was set up for one play to happen, and if not, then there might have been a breakdown. It's always interesting to see the two different narratives for something that could be kind of similar at times. But throw $5 on if you're listening to this. Throw $5 on what people are expecting to happen, not to happen, because you spend $5 on stupid stuff probably on a daily basis, and you might get like $80 in return for it. More. He's saying more. Spend $7 on this to happen.
I'll spend $11 for my article on it.
Hey,
$19.99 after taxes. That's what I pay Bo. $19.99.
Oh, you stole it from me. You stole it from me. All right.
$19.99.
All right. So Bo's been on a work break. Scott's got family to attend to, and also another podcast. I have my 9-month-old I have to help out with as well. Or else we probably go for another hour here. I think easily. I felt like this flew by. Thank you both so much for coming on again at the same time. Nobody's seen these guys in the same room ever. So this is a historic P2W podcast today. Again, can you let us know for those listening live or maybe who skipped through half the podcast here? I'm not sure where we can find you, Bo. Anything else you want to plug, and then we'll go to Scott to finish that off.
Yeah.
He's a company man on the bottom here.
This guy. Bo_McBigTime on Twitter. Big Time Flavor _ on Instagram. That's my food pornography account. Graphic filthy stuff on that Instagram. And then you can always visit bigtimeflavorcode.com to get all your elevating food ancillary seasonings, rubs, and of course Hotbox gourmet hot sauce that it just turns everything up to 11, cranks it up full volume. You can put it on a shoe. It'll probably make your shoe taste less footy. But yeah, those are the 3 things that I'm passionate about. And so you also go to Viridian Global and get your Hotbox and Big Time Flavor Co merch.
Shout out to Viridian Global, per usual. They are the house for the P2W Fantasy merchandise as well, and they literally are the 101 of not just fantasy gear, of gear in general. So check out Viridian Global.
Whole first round.
Everything. I'll trade my 22 second and the 23 first and second round picks for even the 12th pick of the Viridian Global asset there. Scott, where can we find you, man? And anything else you want to plug as we close the spot out?
Yeah, I would say you can find me at NimbleWNumbers on Twitter. You can also find me at the FF Millionaires on Twitter as well. You can find my website, but Bo being featured at NimbleWNumbers /Bo. That's all I need. Bo. Just /Bo after NimbleWNumbers, and you'll get all of his content this fall. Please do check him out. He's going to win you money. If you listen to Bo and you read his articles each week, you will win cash money. And this week or this year, we're not sure exactly what it's all going to look like, but we're also working on a service that's going to render some lineups for friends as well. Hopefully make you some extra money on the side. Bo and I are working on algorithms and all kinds of things at NimbleWNumbers. So please do check us out over there. And then I'm on Twitter every day at NimbleWNumbers on Twitter. I just love hanging out with friends. I love talking football. I love being silly. I love being friends with everybody. I mean, Bo knows I'm just out there every single day making a complete self of me. So
whether it's hot sauce, whether it's DFS, whether it's some humor, dynasty talk, these two guys are absolutely great at pretty much everything they do, especially when it comes to everything related to the fantasy community. And most people watching this podcast or listening probably know these guys. And if you don't, definitely check them out. I'm a massive fan of both these guys. So it's been great having you both on. This will be available on iTunes, Spotify, all that good stuff later this week. And if you listen live or in your car, wherever the case was, thank you very much. Appreciate that. And have a great weekend. A week from today is a draft. Look forward to that. Again.
Thanks, Nick.